Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full goon squad in the house. Drew, Sherb, Hunter, DJ, Ted making cool noises over on his button machine over there.
Over on his button machine.
Old button machine.
Last weekend was tough. No football.
Sucked. I hated
I was
it.
like basically at my house, the Pablo Escobar meme from Narcos, where he's just sitting in different places by himself, all sad. That was me. So with that in mind, we're gonna do a little wager here. Super Bowl predictions. Winner picks lunch. Loser has to go get it. Okay, and we'll just make Hunter pay no matter what.
Thanks, Hunter.
Fuck.
So winner and then final score. I'm writing these down right now. Sure.
Going first?
I wonder who Sherb thinks is gonna win.
Tampa Bay, 27-23. It's going to be not the shootout everyone's predicting, because whenever they do, it's always the opposite. And I do think that'll be, some decent amount of scoring in the game, and I do think there'll be some explosive plays. But I do think typically when this happens, the defenses tend to show up. And now that they're playing themselves a second time, you usually see a different outcome. And last time the Chiefs just snuck it out, so I'm guessing kind of the exact opposite in the Super Bowl.
Hunter.
Tampa Bay 24-17.
That's not happening. Nice job. Ted?
I'm going Kansas City.
I was like, damn, I just choose Kansas City and then I'll fucking get to pick lunch.
It's going to be 36-12.
Holy fuck.
What? 36. Is that even?
How many interceptions does Brady have to throw to get it to 12 points? Because he threw like 6 2 weeks ago and they scored 40.
It'll be a close game. It'll be like
24-21. All right. And then I will go Kansas City 29-27.
29-27.
29-27. So
Kind of like a final drive scenario there, you think? Where they pull it out at the very end, or like the team makes a comeback and they get close but miss?
29?
yeah,
Dog.
easy day. There's safeties, missed extra points. 2-point
Usually good for
conversions.
at least one missed extra point.
Dude, this year, seriously.
Fuck, I guess. Yeah, whatever. It'll be exciting.
I'm going to say 2 picks for Tom in the Super Bowl. He usually has a couple turnovers, and they usually still don't matter.
He usually
he's just
does,
gonna
yes.
throw one 48 feet in the air off his back foot to
It'll
no
be interesting
one.
to see, too. I saw some crazy stat. He's fucking like 36-0 inside the red zone this season. 36 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the entire season in the red zone.
So he tries when he gets down to the red zone.
It's just funny because that's what you want from every single quarterback, to not force the ball and do that there. But he's just like, fuck it. If it's not going to go in the end zone, I'm going to throw it 15 rows deep.
It's like Marcus Mariota. Every single time he had the ball in his hands, they're like, he still hasn't thrown an interception in the red zone. He's like,
He also hasn't thrown any touchdowns.
Yeah, I was going to say, he is the backup the third string quarterback for the Raiders. All right. Sort of a housekeeping item, kind of exciting. We are hiring a marketing and social media director. You can send an email to careers@misfitathletics.com with your resume and cover letter. If you would like to see more about the position, job description, qualifications, all that good stuff, you can head to LinkedIn and check that out if you just search for Misfit Athletics.
Is this how you're going to tell you're firing me? Is this how it happens right here? This is what's happening right now?
Well, I mean, we're going to keep you around to hang out with you. Like, I feel like you know that. So,
Hang out in the corner. Be quiet, though.
yeah. While we're working, please just figure out, just go exercise. Try one of your 19 new pairs of shoes. Put on your $10,000 headphones with the, if you guys are on YouTube, Sherb has the new, what is this?
That was me with my dongle so I could listen, but then I didn't have a cord. So,
Your gamer stuff?
yeah, dog.
I can't handle the case.
Oh, it's not a good looking case. Thankfully, someone else
so
decided
silly.
to do something better. Be very interested to see how I like that one better. But case
Still,
is
you can't
atrocious.
turn them off.
No, you'd think that would be kind of an important feature when you're making headphones, be able to turn them off without putting them in that little weird
Wait, you can't
purse.
turn those off?
Unless they're in that
case. There's no button to turn them off.
Jesus Christ.
And it takes, I think it takes 2 hours for power saving mode to turn on of not using them.
These things have like 4 different power modes, like full power, not on your head power, in the case power, and then like obviously dead.
Well, they're
What
obsessed
are they
with that.
doing not on your head?
They're
Why do they need
obsessed with
power
the
when you're
chip
not on your grade?
automatically connecting to whatever you're using immediately.
Yeah.
So if they powered on and off, they wouldn't be able to do that. but
Yeah,
it's
they
still
actually
silly.
switch pretty nice, like between different mediums, computer and my phone, and the sound's really nice. But yeah,
I put them on. They're nice. They're nice. I don't know if they're $600 nice, and I don't know about the bra for them, but you know,
It's
it is
adorable.
what it is. Kind of a crazy week in the CrossFit space. Matt Fraser retired.
Who? Oh,
Who?
yeah,
Yep.
that guy.
My bad.
We got a little rule book update.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So Fraser retirement. What do you guys think?
It's
Are
funny.
you surprised? Are you mad? Are you sad?
I said something to my wife the other day. It's just weird that Matt had been in the public eye as much as he had been recently. Like prior to this season, essentially you'd hear from Matt in like a social setting on social media for like a week or two after the games. Hey, I'm having fun. I'm spending money. I'm going places, doing things. And then he'd go like basically radio silent except for like promotional stuff I'm sure he has to do for his, sponsorships and whatnot. And it would be just, putting in the work, doing this, doing that. And it's not really like, hey, look at my life. But it seemed like there was a little bit more of that this year with like the podcast with Savan and Josh and like just him doing more things. So I was like, oh, it's a little bit different, but it could be just because the season's different again for the, 10th or 12th iteration it is now. So it was just interesting to see that. And then to hear that, I was like, oh, that's a kind of a bummer. When we were talking about back, like watching like The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, it's like, can you imagine like being a Bulls fan in that like 93 season, being pumped that you just won the championship. And then all of a sudden the best player that ever played leaves your team. And then you're like, well, fuck, what now? But I mean, I don't necessarily have that kind of stock in Matt that I would in the Bulls if I was a Bulls fan, but it's just like a bummer to see the beacon of like the pinnacle of the sport just be like, I'm good now. See you guys.
I think it was a little bit surprising given like he was on the Darren Woodson podcast. We talked a little bit about that. He made a somewhat recent post. It might have just been for sponsor purposes. It was like, looking forward to a couple more weeks of like bro session, the gym before we get back to work, like that sort of thing. And then made that announcement. So, I mean, I think it's kind of cool in the sense that it is now obviously the men's field is wide open.
Right.
Like, and we're going to see like how many top 10 male athletes or even like just qualifying games athletes all of a sudden like hair stood up on the back of their neck. Like, holy fuck. Like, we're no longer competing for second place. Like who's going to take over? So I think that'll be an interesting.
I got a good chuckle out of some of
it'll
those.
make for an exciting games. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't exciting to watch Frazier fucking wax the floor with everybody, but it'll be exciting in a different way.
Yeah, CrossFit's weird, right? Like I have been coaching against him for a long time, but he's a Northeast athlete. And like, there's also like, he's like a true New Englander. He's not like from, Connecticut or Boston or he's not from like a city. Like he's from New England.
Yep.
He grew up, I think, in a very similar way to the way that we did. So I think that there's some piece of me that sort of has that, like I've, been in the warm-up area with him for a super long time. And like rooting for him, I think was a little bit easier because of that. And then there was also the, like, we loved at first that we thought that there was going to be like a CrossFit maverick, like the kind of person who like really sort of like got into the pageantry of like, showing people up and things of that nature. Now, obviously he found out that that probably wasn't serving him in the best way.
Right.
I was selfishly pretty pissed. Like that was my first reaction. I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
But I think on the other side there, like looking at it from a realistic standpoint, we have no clue what it's like to try harder than anyone else in like the whole fucking world.
I mean, he made that kind of like why I retired post, and like I'm sure I kind of wish it went a little bit more in depth, but when he was like a couple weeks out from the games, I stopped using a fucking steak knife. Like
I got a good chuckle out of that one.
like
That was
holy
pretty funny.
shit. Like, you've heard of that sort of thing before. Like, hey, don't ride a motorcycle. Like
Right.
they tell people to do that all the time, and like big organizations like the military will do that before a deployment, like that sort of thing. But
Right.
and he's elaborated on the things that he does on a daily basis, and the just kind of the focus and how everything in his life other than like training is basically like autopilot.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting. I would enjoy like a peek behind the curtain of the Matt Frazier. I don't want to see I hope he doesn't start selling programming.
He said he was going to show people what he was doing, but I don't know if
that's
he's
probably
to
just
sell it. And to me,
I mean, they're already selling his program now.
yeah, it's
Are they?
the proven
I didn't know
stuff
that.
from Shane
Okay.
Chandler.
Yeah.
I mean, that business technically already exists.
Yeah, that's true.
And the problem with all of this stuff is, and we wrote the musing about it and had a hilarious comment on there, a little troll. But we've had plenty of conversations about like getting outside of that like hater mentality and in the moment realizing what you're witnessing. I think it's easy for the easier thing to do as a person is to just be like, whatever. He's got those genetics, like that kind of thing. And when we hear stuff like that, we just ask, hey, do you think that you're outworking, Tia? Do you think you're outworking her?
Yeah.
Because there's really no excuse otherwise.
Right.
Like that doesn't exist. So, I mean, I wrote the musing because I think it's really important for people to understand that there's never going to be a scenario where you can snap your fingers and turn into that person. Like you can, like we're talking about no life whatsoever. And that is a choice.
Yeah.
And you get to witness that greatness, and you get to witness like how amazing a person can be at something if that's the only thing that they're trying to do. But you have to ask yourself, that's nonstop. That's all day, every day. Like, how would you be in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, every person probably has that one thing, that they're like, oh man, I would love to be world class at this. And it's not a matter of desire. It's more a matter of like, how far are you willing to go to make that a reality? Because there's like, he is obviously the extreme of that. There are people who say that you want to go to the CrossFit Games, but you can't. They won't roll into bed before 9 p.m. And it's like, do you actually want it?
Right.
Like, it's fine to say that, but again, when you're making that honest assessment of your effort, like, I think he could probably pretty confidently say that he did everything within his power, and it resulted in fucking 5 gold medals.
I'm actually really excited to hear him. I'm not so interested in the programming side of it, but just like the lifestyle factors, and for him to kind of go out there and say, here's roughly what my day looked like.
I think we kind of already know.
Because he's said it a little bit, but it'd be nice to for someone to actually
I don't
sit
think
down.
it's secret and complicated. I think what's insane about it is how mundane it could feel living it.
Yeah,
I don't think there's going to be anything
there's nothing
surprising.
exciting.
Well, that was my point, though, is that how many people are willing to do that every day? That's the hard part. Like, that's, we're in COVID. You have to get up, you go to your dining room table, you work for 8 hours, you do it again the next day, but you want to be the best at it. You keep doing it, and your routine doesn't change. And most human beings are like, I'm fine for like a week. I could do that for a little while, but it's the being able to do it every single day, day in and day out. It reminds me a lot of like CrossFitters' journeys that aren't at Frazier, that they want to just be healthier in the gym. And like, it seems like they get stuck in one place for a long time. And then at the end, someone's like, oh, how did you become this fit or that healthy? And it's like, you didn't see that I came here 5 days a week for 3 years to turn into who I am.
Right.
You just thought I walked in and then the next day I came in and I look like this. That's not how this works.
I think it's like with any sport. To the casual observer, it's like, oh man, it would be so cool to be a professional hockey player, professional football player. And it's like, no, what you're saying is it would be cool to be on TV once a week, playing in front of, 100,000 people and being paid millions of dollars. That would be cool. What wouldn't be cool is just the absolute beatdown that you take every single week, and the lifestyle
Getting hit in the head by Aaron
restrictions
Donald.
and constraints that you have to work around. Like the other, 90% of your time aside from the actual competition.
That's the whole point that I don't think people understand is you can execute on the same things that he's executing on. He is not doing everything else that you're doing in your life, the social stuff, the traveling,
Right.
having a fucking job, going to school, doing all these things. Like, it's so much about that as well. Like, he's got blinders on. There are no other things. Therefore, like, all those resources just grow and grow and grow and grow because he's not doing that stuff. So it's not necessarily just, okay, I'm willing to do 20 by 500 meter row. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are willing to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But if he's got way more gas in the tank because he's not doing all this other stuff, then it's not the same.
I always go back to that story you hear. It's like, what do you do on your like rest days? Oh, I put The Office on and I stretch and foam roll for 14 hours in front of the TV. What? You do what for 14 hours?
And if people don't think that's real, we know the guy that did the video pretty well, and he's like, it was one of the most boring days of my life.
I mean, I got to watch some episodes of The Office, so not terrible, but the same idea here is that like that type of lifestyle, that mundane routine is his bag, and that's what allows him to do what you can't do, or allows you to have, or allows him to have that gear that you don't have just now because you aren't willing to do 14 hours of foam rolling in front of the TV, or making sure that all your meals are taken care of so you're not spending time, that could be spent sleeping or stretching or doing a training session, preparing food or whatever else. Like that to me is the biggest thing. And really interesting to hear him say like how important his support team was, because without them, none of the stuff that he did would be feasible for him, because you can't do all of these jobs and responsibilities and be a full-time, CrossFit Games champion. That's not how that works.
Hopefully there's some footage floating around somewhere that's going to get compiled and turned into a pretty cool documentary or something like that coming down the pike.
There is a lot. There is a lot of footage, because I believe one of the years that he won was the year that everyone got fired from CrossFit. They never made that documentary.
Yeah.
They still have all that footage, and I actually think they've edited a bunch of it.
Wasn't that the Buttery Bros one? Didn't they come out like independently
It's
with
like
it?
who owns that stuff.
I
I think there's another one though.
Oh,
If I remember correctly, there's a year where there's no games documentary yet. Because I think a few times on social they've asked, like, do you guys want us to figure out how to get this done? Because it's interesting. And the last thing that I'll say about Fraser is if you think that you are one of the, the 0.0001% that's willing to go there, I think the fuel that he created by losing a few times seems to be a very consistent story when it comes to people like, a Michael Jordan or whatever.
Tom Brady, all those guys.
A lot of those people. And we remember he was at regionals in 2013, and it was weird because it was back and forth of like, oh my God, who is this, to has he ever done CrossFit? Like he squat jerked 315 from the front rack, like to do his overhead squats. And I mean, there were just completely random workouts. I mean, the one with the 225 squat cleans, he did really well in. I remember him being either first or second or third, whatever, in that chipper with the wall balls and the overhead walking lunges. And it was just interesting to see someone with that level of talent. And then I just think just a glimpse of, I could be this with, I fucking lost. Like those things together, it's almost like you're matching what your opportunities could be with the feeling of, fuck, I really don't like losing.
And he's talked about that so many times, how important all those losses were in becoming who he was, because without them, he wouldn't have cleaned up his diet or found the right support staff or put his, the eggs in the right basket. And to me, that's a really important lesson, because a lot of times you see athletes have a failure or two, and that can literally totally derail their desire or willingness to keep working when they're that close. I mean, how many times have we seen athletes come in our door here at the affiliate and be like, I want to be this level athlete, and they give it like a couple days, and then they're like, oh, it's hard, I stopped. It's like, that's the persistence you don't have. That's the part that you don't understand, is that it takes 1% after 1% after 1% for a long, long time with lots of lessons mixed in. That's how you become who that is. And that's, to me, the most important part of that story is that he always goes back and goes, if I didn't lose twice, like I lost to Froning, like, oh, it's the old guard, he's the champion, I lost BFD. But when he lost to Ben, when he thought for sure he was just going to be the guy standing at the top of the podium at the end of the weekend, you can tell that burned him good. And that's essentially what created who we see now, the guy that wins by 250 points every single year.
I love the arguments, the GOAT arguments when it comes to those two. It's like, because it's always referred to as like, oh, it's like comparing Michael and LeBron. It's like, well, no, they literally not really.
They didn't play together.
Yeah, those comparisons always, like, I've given up on doing that sort of thing. Like to me, in my opinion, it's impossible to ever make those comparisons, especially if there wasn't like a significant overlap. It's like you're competing in a different time when the competition was different. Like, yeah, Michael, LeBron, that sort of thing. Like, who's to say who knows whether Michael Jordan would have performed as well in the current NBA or LeBron in the previous NBA and like the, you know, all those sorts of things like, oh, but if the level was higher, would he have been better? Like that sort of thing. So it's just so hard to make that argument with the Froning Frazier.
I think they mean different things to the sport. I think that Frazier is the greatest CrossFitter that we've ever seen. And I think that Rich fast forwarded the fucking sport by 3 to 5 years on his own immediately.
Right. Yeah.
You know, whether he understood it intuitively or it just happened, this idea of compounding, this idea of like, you guys are doing one workout a day at 95 pounds and I'm doing 4 a day at 165. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? I'm also probably doing it faster than you're doing it at, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like what he did to the sport in that period of time, because who knows how long it would have been one and done, or, you know, I'm going to get my workouts done in this period of time. Like how long would that have kept going until he was like, no, I did 7 Metcons.
That's why I always laugh when you hear about the old NFL comparisons. It's like, do you look at those old ads of NFL players? They're literally smoking butts on the bench.
And drinking Coca-Cola in the fucking locker room.
Literally no off-season whatsoever. The off-season spent like fucking gambling on like horse racing and smoking cigarettes, like versus like what they do now, spending, you know, upwards of $1 million or $2 million a year on body work and massage and all these like therapies. Like it's just funny to get that comparison because I honestly sent something like that. And another thing that Rich did for the sport that, you know, obviously set the tone for it, he showed people like, hey, if you don't move like an asshole, like if you think about how you move and you clean things up, that will dramatically improve your ability to stay moving. That's what eventually gave him the leg up early on, is that because he was such a proficient mover, he didn't take the same beat down everybody did. And he was able to do, like you said, 4 or 5 sessions a day where other people do 1 and are like, well, I'm cooked, it's toast now. So, you know, I agree with that. He did accelerate the sport so much relative to, you know, the people around him.
And I always use the comparison, Ted will chuckle, I always use the comparison of the snowboarding. It's like you're adding a 180 or whatever. 1800 double cork just happened at the X Games.
I don't think I could do that standing on the ground.
fall down and die.
Get dizzy by the time you spun around. It just is like
just a few spins.
I remember like when it went past to like the 1260 and it was like, it's got to stop at some point. And apparently it does not need to stop at any point.
Fucking can't multiply by 180 past,
seriously,
900 anymore. I'm still impressed with Tony Hawk's 900, you know?
Right. Seriously. Yeah. Basically Froning went from Tony Hawk to 2021 in 1 year.
That's fucking bonkers.
Yeah. All right. Rules book update. We got some information on the semifinals, which was nice, and it's almost as if they're like doing this shit on purpose and it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it'll be a cool, I like how they split up the events, the various events, and I think, you know, if I don't know if you guys watched Castro and Annie Sakamoto talk about it.
I had to have a language specialist translate the shit he was writing on the board. But yeah.
forgot Australia, Oceania.
Where now?
Yeah, but I think it's cool that like, hey, it's a good system, and it's also nice that it's one, like kind of those boundaries are fixed, but 2, it's scalable. So it's like as soon as, you know, registration goes up, you get more events, and that's how it is. It's like a free market version of competitive CrossFit. So I think I like how they did that, just kind of based on participation. I also like that I was confused about how he specified. Sorry. I
like it. You like it. He likes it.
We like it.
How your placing in the quarterfinals kind of allows you to decide which of the 4, if you're in North America.
But do I see your choice? That's the part that matters.
Well, I don't know.
Of course. That's what mattered with sanctionals way back in the day. All these people trying to guess which
that's
one was
true.
right.
I actually didn't even think about that.
It has to be, though. It has to be, though, because think of this. We all unknowingly, we're the 3 best CrossFitters in the world. This is I love where this is going right now. So we're the 3 best CrossFitters in the world, and we picked the same one.
Yeah,
that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, great for
right?
spectators,
and honestly, it could be the top 10 best in North America. So I didn't actually go into the rule book, but I didn't see where they were mentioning that. But the idea that you do get to pick is cool, because it's like a lot of factors. There's who's going to be there geographically. Where do you want to go? Like, do you want to be closer to home? Do you want to go to some cool place? If, no offense, but if you're the 101st athlete or whatever, probably not going to the CrossFit Games. So like, do you want to go throw down with a certain, group of people? So I definitely find that to be interesting.
Yeah, because I kind of only was like, oh, it's a convenience thing. I didn't even register. Like, no, I don't want to be in the same fucking region as.
You just saw it happen back in the
else.
sanctionals. Just people guessing wrong or guessing right. Oh, the prize is going to be good. Oh, the prize is great, but there's no spots available to me. Or the prize is terrible, but now I get a spot at the CrossFit Games. It's all about like what's important to you, because you see people show up to like Dubai, for example, and come in like 10th and get a ticket to the games. So it really depends on the kind of like what you're in for. And, I imagine most are getting that ticket, but it's still nice to kind of have that opportunity to figure out who's going where.
Yeah. That will be interesting to see how that, because I'm trying to think like, you have until noon on this day. You, second place, have until 12:30 on this day. So you have that chance to see where somebody else goes, maybe, or is it exclusively like, yep, you get
Open
to pick
season.
and. That would probably be the fairest way to do it, right? Is to not show anybody and for you just to decide what you're going to go to.
I don't think they would want to have 5 people qualify in one of the places, like the weirdest spot.
Right.
Like 5 people qualify from there, and then there aren't even enough spots in the best one for the last chance qualifier.
Yeah. It might, maybe. Yeah, I imagine it'll be a combination. Like they'll ultimately, maybe CrossFit will have the final say, and they'll try to keep, the top 30, I guess. Like you get your first choice within reason, assuming that we're not going to accidentally stack one region or something like that. But
it would be nice for CrossFit to have some sort of overarching like control on all this too, so you don't have what happened in the Central East for years and years, where you have like, I don't know, 6 of the top 30 men in the entire world in one region, but only 3 of you get tickets every single year. So to get the best product on the field, yes, there is the last chance qualifier, which I think allows 2 men and 2 women, I think is the way Dave described it, to get into the games.
Well,
but
I think it was the top 3
No, he's saying
outside
who
the podium.
qualifies from it.
From the last chance.
We get 38 from semifinals, and then we get the final 2 from last chance.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see that CrossFit had some sort of say in that, because again, you don't want like the Nick Urankers of the world who finished like 1 spot at qualifying like 10 years in a row, or Christian Harris back in the Northeast way back would always be 1 or 2 spots out of it. And like, realistically, would they win the CrossFit Games? Probably not, but we don't know. But it'd be nice to have the best talent at the main stage when we get there.
That'll be a super fucking exciting event. I know he said it'll probably be online this year, but in the future, if there was
2
just
events,
one, like an event, a semifinal, and then the last chance.
I heard
he said that there might be 2 in-person events for the last chance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That would be a fucking cool event to go to for sure.
I believe that the way that they set it up hinges totally on the last chance qualifier. I think it's a terrible idea until the last chance qualifier comes in. And when they first announced it, I was like, oh, you keep attention on the sport for longer. Great business idea. But Europe and Oceania, as of right now, are very top heavy, right? Oh, yeah. So you're kind of screwing them over when it comes to this until we look at the last chance qualifier spots. Because then, you take people, it just sort of makes it so that no one has an argument at a certain point. You take those 6, 7, and 8.
You had so many opportunities that if you didn't make it,
right,
on
you were never going to.
And let's say you are 8 from the weakest division in North America.
Yep.
You better bring the fucking heat against the people from Europe and Oceania.
Yeah.
Like
good.
That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Like that to me is really cool, because you quickly think about Australia and New Zealand and you're like, fuck, how are they going to get all those people into the games? And I wouldn't be surprised if no one from North America did any damage in the last chance qualifier, unless what we were talking about before, where there could be top heavy events, unless that happens.
True. Yeah. Whew. I'm excited to see. I really am excited to see this like format come back, and the fact that the athletes are jazzed up about it. But I really just can't wait to hear where they are, when they are, and who's going to be in charge of what, because that to me is so much unknown. I know they said they're going to have people like helping out. The people that are running these events will be responsible for working under certain parameters for the event, but just really excited to see how much of a hand CrossFit has on it and like how hands off it is and like what actually ends up coming up, because it's just so much unknown right now. Like, what is the event actually going to look like when it actually occurs?
Right. And I think there's a little bit of disguise built in there. One of the issues with the old regionals model was learning how to game a workout by the final week. Like, and to me, that's just, it doesn't fit with our sport. It almost tries to turn us into
The Olympics.
well, okay, every competition you do Fran, 2K row, Oli total, you're done. Like, that's not our sport. You need to be able to do a bunch of fucking random shit and be tested on it. So to me, the idea of standardizing it across all those weeks was a bit of a problem.
Yeah, it was, definitely saw athletes chase times, and the times would drop, and times would drop, or the weights would go up and the weights go up. And, you ask, like, how does that person score? And they're going to try to do this comparison, getting ready for the games. Like, how does Dan Bailey's event 1 from regionals compare to, Frazier's event 1 from whatever? And it's like, how would we know? We don't really know because they're not competing on the same floor. So everything's conjecture. We're just throwing up ideas. But, to me, it makes the sport more exciting because there's a little bit more of unknown. Like, this dude crushed the North America semifinal.
It's also the whole sport in every other sense. So to have those weekends where it's like, I've had 9 practice tries on this workout now, and I know exactly that if I try to do 12 reps instead of 10 in this round, that this is going to happen. Like, it just doesn't, like, to me, it doesn't go with the spirit of every other, round of competing.
And I love the variance idea. The old sectionals format where like the person was kind of in charge of it, and again, a little more control than it used to be. It was just like
what? Rob Orlando, put that strongman chipper in there. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, need it, bro. But the idea, again, variance in that really does lend itself to unknown and unknowable and being ready for anything, which again fits with the company tagline, which is great because then we really see what these athletes are capable of. And I do think by having the opportunity for some creative freedom with these sectional or these semifinal holders is that you're going to see them get better and better, and things are going to work really well, and some things aren't going to go so well because again, it's a melding of the minds. But eventually, we're going to have maybe a year or two from now a really nice way to format these and what we can expect from it. But there's also the unknown element, which makes it exciting. So you're not like, all right, cool, we're going to watch regionals, Nate. We're going to see someone do 10 rounds in 20 minutes, and everyone's going to be separated by 4 reps. Like,
yeah, from a viewership perspective, too, that's like you want to tune in. You want to see the different workouts. Like, how many times did you guys watch triple threes and like want to kill yourself? Like
a lot of times to the back of my eyelids.
Yeah, and thinking about it, I think they'll have to announce the workouts on the spot. I don't think you could announce them ahead of time. Certainly not ahead of when the athlete chooses what region they go to, right?
Correct.
That wouldn't be super fair.
Once it's seated, yeah.
So, and then...
I'm taking that one.
The gaps aren't very big either. If you look at the calendar, when they're talking about the dates that you have to accept by, they're very close to the events.
Yeah, so I think... Yeah, I would hope that once everybody accepts their events, then maybe they publish them. Or I think the fairest way to do it would be to do it like
live
announce it like when the athletes are sitting in the auditorium or whatever, like here's event 1, 2, 3, or I don't know if it would be logistically possible to do it just like ahead of time, like just before the event, to really keep that kind of excitement there and force the athlete like we've talked about, like the online qualifier and how they're going to do quarterfinals. Is it going to be workout 1 is due by this time, workout 2 is due by that time? Because we don't want to fucking see you be able to do 3 attempts at the workout. Like, I want to see what you can do. Like, do you actually know yourself, or do you just need 3 tries to dial this workout in? So I think that would make for an exciting semifinal, and just like again the viewer experience, the
pageantry of it is going to make it a difference.
Yeah,
like,
it'll be exciting
to
to
what's
see
going to
that.
happen.
Yeah, and just prevents athletes from kind of cherry picking their region for that reason.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, to me, the updates themselves, I think everybody knows, it's this many people going to this place. We don't have to necessarily get into that. But to wrap it up, I keep feeling like we're being ushered into a new version and the correct version, and like where we've graduated. CrossFit is going to college or something, or has a graduated college. That sort of, I just really feel like, Sherman and I get the affiliate update emails, and they're asking questions and providing advice. And I just think that they're finally creating departments and actually getting, who should be doing what and caring about singular focus type things.
They're maturing as a business. You can see the current steps that Eric's putting in place with, I'm sure, his team. But for me, it's so exciting that it feels like there's a logical sequence to now the season for 3 years or so. It's been like, I don't fucking know what's going to happen next. This year it's regional.
I can't even remember. I can't even, I keep having to change the names of sheets.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've said regionals or sanctionals or semifinals or quarterfinals or games in the wrong fucking, games, I can handle that. Or the Open.
I can't.
The Super Bowl. Fuck.
When is that?
Super Bowl.
Preseason?
CrossFit Super Bowl 2028.
All I was going to get to, it's really nice to see that the story is kind of unfolding the way it wants to,
Yeah.
and like sort of following through on what they had essentially promised with new ownership. It's like, hey, we're going to go back to giving a shit about this, and we're going to make sure that you guys understand how this is going. And yeah, would we greedily want to know more sooner? Of course, but this season seems like it's following a logical order now, and it's getting people jazzed up. So
Yeah,
like,
I think
I'm fired up about
it's definitely kind of, I think the first kind of modern step in the professionalization of the sport itself, in like you guys are saying, a logical fashion, but that one that's also scalable, so that we can still incorporate, kind of have that the all-inclusive community feel. We can still facilitate that while also getting, making sure that the competitive side is still important and still reasonable, still fair, entertaining, kind of all the check boxes that you want from an athletics and a sport side of things, but having that unique blend of being the only sport on earth where every single human can compete in some capacity at some stage of the event.
Right.
Like you ain't competing in week 1 of the NFL before you get cut. Like
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Me too. Fuck.
And an
Truck stick.
actual CrossFitter being the one to come into this is the reason why we're able to beef up the infrastructure. We're able to have the season make sense, but still able to not have specific structure to the competitions themselves. It's so easy to go overboard when you're trying to systemize things to make them easier, to systemize everything.
Yeah, micromanage certain
And then
parts of
that,
it.
that level of creativity and the level of openness to the whole community that makes CrossFit so different and so special. Like, we can keep that. You can, make it easier on affiliates. You can make it easier on competition partners and judges, and all of the infrastructure, the behind the scenes stuff should be systemized to the point where everything is smooth and rolling through. But like, if Castro had to follow a template that wasn't his own or something, like, you can see something like that happening if the wrong person had taken over. So it's like getting rid of the shit that stressed everyone the fuck out and keeping the things that make it exciting.
Yeah, I think it's the right level of kind of decentralizing the processes that need to happen to make it best for everybody in every kind of section and quarter of the company and the brand.
Right. All right, Misfits, just a quick break to tell you about our show sponsors and save you a little bit of dough. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com and use the code word Keala, Keala, to donate 10% of your order amount to the Keala Foundation and to still save 10% on the order. We just got off of a release. We still got a bunch of Yoggers left. But most importantly, we are moving on up across the street,
Heyo.
and we are having a warehouse sale. So keep your eyes out for the date and the announcement. Not only are things going to be on sale so that Sherb doesn't have to carry them next door,
Thank you, guys.
but we are also taking all those boxes that have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the shirts or the pants that you guys have all wanted us to restock that we haven't, and we're putting those into the store. So if you are one of the first people to get there, you're going to be able to get a shirt that, maybe isn't going to get reprinted, or you haven't been able to get your size in. So we are taking all of those things that we keep in inventory to make sure we can handle returns and all that good stuff, and we're throwing it into the store. So there's going to be some luck involved. We'll make sure there are some good discounts. So keep your eyes at Sharpen the Axe on social media for that.
We are also brought to you by Pure Spectrum CBD. Head to www.purespectrumcbd.com.
http://
Use that code
www.
word, Misfit. Save yourself a little green. Personally, I've been using a lot of that tincture, the 2,500 milligram Black Label tincture because Hunter keeps writing these terrible ass workouts that he keeps waxing my ass in, and my legs have just been broken for the last I don't even know how long. So I got up this morning and I was like, man, my fucking legs are killing me. So, a couple drops under the tongue, did a double dose this morning, and again, it's gonna make you feel a little bit better because that inflammation is just not a fun thing to deal with. So again, if you're like me, banged up a little bit from training, head to Pure Spectrum CBD, use the code word Misfit to save a little money.
Thought you were using fucking dial-up connection to tell everybody what the address was. We are also brought to you by Proper Fuel. Head to properfuel.co, code word Misfit, save on your first jug. By the time you guys are listening to this, Yoki Robinson will have posted on the YouTubes, and holy fuck, I said it. Yeah,
he's not exaggerating. He hasn't even said anything yet, and he's not exaggerating.
I haven't been quite as debilitated in a long time. I crawled myself over to my Proper Fuel. It was a 38 scoop kind of workout. So
one jug per. You just pour the water into the jug and shake
round. It out. Yeah. But actually, I know for a fact when I take that the next day, my soreness is significantly lower than if I hadn't taken that. I do a pretty good job of eating real food, but especially on workouts like that, I want that fuel. I know that I'm going to recover a little bit better. So properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on your first order.
And last but not least, if you like what you're hearing on the podcast and want to see what it's like to join the Misfit family, the Misfit community, get into that programming, you can head to misfitathletics.com, teammisfit.com, or the SugarWOD marketplace and try almost any of our programs 2 weeks for free. We believe in it so much. We work so hard on it. We test workouts with athletes. We have a lot of success in the sport, and you can try it for 2 weeks for free. So head to any of those websites, SugarWOD Marketplace, teammisfit.com, misfitathletics.com, 2 weeks for free. All right, back to the episode. All right, so we have been doing the competition season series. We've done 3 episodes so far. This is episode 4. Obviously talking about other things quite a bit here at the beginning, but I actually think it leads in very well from what we're talking about right now. And what I want to touch on, and it doesn't have to be super long-winded or complicated, is this idea that we might be facing online competitions again for an entire season. At the very least, up until the CrossFit Games. I think that they would probably try at all costs to have people compete in person for the CrossFit Games, but we could be looking at another year of, oh boy, here we go. I thought I was going to get to go here, and now I don't. And it really brings to mind the idea that we know of a lot of athletes that are amazing on the competition floor that are not so great in their gym in front of a camera. And it's important for us to unpack some ideas
and vice versa.
Yeah, and absolutely. Unpack some ideas of maybe why this is happening and what an athlete can start doing right now to get themselves to a point where they understand the difference between walking out for their, 5 by 1K row versus this is a showcase of this massive well of hard work.
Yeah. My right as you were saying this, my immediate thought was maybe go to a different gym. If you're a competitive athlete and you have, we've got all of these sort of, whether it's open prep workouts or soon to be semifinal kind of prep type stuff, might not be a bad idea to try to find another local gym and explain to them hey, this is what's going on. I'm trying to kind of prepare for the unknown and unknowable, for lack of a better term, and maybe see if you're able to be accommodated, maybe you bring some fans, quote unquote, from your box, or you invite, them from the other box to come watch, be like, hey, we've got an athlete who's moving on to semifinals or and is trying to perform at their best. They're doing a test run and they want to simulate what it's like to be in front of a competition, be in an unknown atmosphere. Maybe go to a different gym.
My idea initially was just, hey, find someone in the gym that you maybe do or do not like and ask them to judge you. And with the with
hey,
the
I hate you. You want to judge my wall balls?
With the expectation Again, this is going to be something that you'd have to like organize and then be okay with when it actually happens. But tell them to be a fucking prick. Ask them to give me a no rep here and there. Ask me to put me up against adversity in the middle of my training session to see how I adapt to it, because we've seen so many athletes. I'm going to slide
into the gray area on this one.
I've seen so many athletes who, again, you have one no rep, or like in the open workout, you tell them, oh, those wall balls weren't good for the last 2, give me 2 more. And then like they implode on the spot because they don't know how to deal with adversity in the moment. So to me, it kind of lends itself to like you practice like you play. So if you put yourself up in the situation that gives you difficulty, then hopefully when it happens on the floor, you're not as worried about it. And again, I was watching like the Last Dance stuff, and it's talking about Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan going back and forth, and then Phil Jackson started calling ticky-tack fouls, and like Michael was getting pissed over and over again, but he was trying to show him that like you need to be able to play through adversity regardless of what's happening. You need to know that when something goes fucking wrong, you'll be okay, and you can find a plan to make that, fix that issue, versus just blowing up and then imploding and not doing what you can do. So to me, it's just like put yourself in a situation where you are going to be challenged by someone else or something that happens in your workout, because it's going to happen on the field.
Right. I think the ends of the spectrum that I'm not okay with are someone who's going to give you a score and then your video is going to get rejected. Like that person's fucking you over even more than the strict judge. And then the other person that thinks that they are an element of the event. Like when you go to the CrossFit games and it's like at this level, you are here to count. You're not here to critique someone's movement. Like that always bothers me. Like it's like those reps were exactly the same. So they're all bad or they're all good. Like you got to make up your fucking mind. So I think the judge that likes to insert themselves and, create this system, this, I'm more honorable than you. Like those, both ends of that to me are not okay. You need someone that's going to judge you and primarily count your reps once you've established pre-workout, hey, if this happens, it's no good. Like if my hip crease is not below parallel, shit doesn't count. If it doesn't actually, the wall ball doesn't actually touch the target in this specific place, it doesn't count. But when it gets into like just randomly, like it always happens on pistols. It's like you can't, every 4th rep, you can't say no rep because you can't tell whether they're reps or not. Those are the types of things that need to be established before the workout starts. Hey, we're on the same page here. Like you need to make sure that whoever's running your camera for you doesn't put it at an angle that makes it look terrible. Like there are angles where you're like, there's no way that's a rep, but then you saw it in person and it was a rep.
Right.
You're like, listen, I don't know what to say here.
Camera's tricking you.
Yeah. I mean, it does certainly happen. So I think what comes to mind based on what Hunter said is this idea of the environment changing. You can stay at your gym, but like get some people around you, change the music, change the way that you warm up, put up some fucking caution tape. You need to change the environment because your body is going to, we talk about it all the time with, your bedroom and sleep. Like if you associate a specific area with, this is the place that I go and I give pretty damn good effort, 80 to 90% every day. That's awesome. I get better. I improve. That's not going to cut it in this scenario.
You got your favorite pull-up bar. You got your favorite gymnastics mat.
But does that pull-up bar tell you,
everything's okay and safe, and you're supposed to do 6-5-4 here, or
right? I talked about this with Alexis. She had gone and visited one of my remote athletes, Sophie Shaft. She's one of the teen athletes that follows our blog, and she was like, Alexis keeps doing things to my training that makes it harder. And I'm like, good. She's like, what do you mean good? I thought it was bad that I was doing worse. And I was like, she's trying to teach you that like at the competition,
teenagers,
you're not going to always have the best
and
case
Alexis
scenario.
Is a savage.
Yeah, she is.
So she'd say stuff like, you have to hold this pace in the rower, even though there's 10 other things to do, because you need to know if you can do this. Or, hey, you're going to use that pull-up bar because I've never seen you touch it. I know it's 4 inches more out of your grip, but what happens at the CrossFit games? You need to be able to know that it doesn't matter that the pull-up bar is 4 inches taller than usual, or like these certain scenarios. So like, I really enjoyed that. And I was like, thank you for being in person to do this, because sometimes it doesn't get conveyed via text message or like why this occurs. But the lesson here is you put yourself up at adversity so that when adversity does happen, you're prepared. So that to me was one of the things that I thought was great about like what you guys were just saying, like use something you're not familiar with, because that's how it becomes then familiar.
Yeah, I think I really do believe that step one, like if you were only going to do one thing, it's this idea of your emotions and what you're visualizing when it comes to this. It can't feel exactly the same as every other day, because I think that just slots you into a very safe space. And what's amazing about competition and adrenaline and all that is it's not a safe space. There's a pretty good chance you're either going to do significantly worse or better, which to me is a better, tightrope to go on when you're trying to, put yourself into a position where you're better than you've ever been, than it is to play it safe and be somewhere in the middle. I also think that the environment outside of the gym is important, because again, you're letting yourself know that this is just another day and it doesn't really matter that much. Like when you travel and you've got the hotel, you're trying to like get everything perfect in the hotel room, and like you're out to dinner with the athletes and they're looking at their watch a bunch. Like, I got to get home, I got to do this. But like, if you're let's say you're a CrossFit coach, a lot of athletes are like, are you keeping that same full schedule? You're not getting the sleep that you should. We're going back to now essentially, setting the standard of, we talked about, Fraser's focus when it came to these things. He's doing this 365 days a year, and we can't convince an athlete to do it one day. Like, that's obviously, think about that spread. Huge gap there. So just the idea of your routine, like obviously it should stay similar. You don't want to throw your shit all out of whack, but like, it's just this heightened level of, this is not another day. It really isn't, because that's not going to produce the results that you're looking for. And that's things that you do before the workout. And then if it's a multi-event or day competition online, that's the stuff that you do after a workout. Like, you're just going to go do exactly what you would have done on any other training day, or you're going to go do what you would do if you were at a competition, and you got to make sure that you get your flush in, and then you got to go do this. Maybe you're taking a nap in between. Like,
Yeah.
We have to set up a system where an athlete knows this is not business as usual.
Yeah, there's more variables than just the training. And I think this is something that we've done in the past with like regionals prep, sanctionals prep, where it's like, these need to be definitive different sessions. You need to be able to warm up, work out, cool down, recharge, do it all over again, and knowing what it feels like to do that on a second and third iteration, because that is what's going to happen when you do one of these things. To give it your best shot, if they throw, hey, you have to do 7 workouts over the course of 4 days, like, you're going to have a day like that where you need to know that you can warm up, work out, cool down, and do it over again, and have enough time to recharge and to give your best effort. Because, and we don't know the format, but there's a good chance it's going to be, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 workouts. Who knows? I mean, one of the years, the Wadapalooza qualifier was like 13 events over 7 days. Like, that's a shitload of volume for someone that's not used to that. And to give it your best effort with the opportunity to potentially retest one if they allow you to, you need to be able to do this skill. So it's something you practice day in and day out. So knowing that the variables are more than just show up, warm up, and do your workout, there's many other things that, at play.
Yeah. Another thing to consider is that I think it's actually kind of opposite of what you guys are saying. But it's just different, is things like, how often have you gone to like a local competition that's a day long and you just didn't eat the entire day?
Right.
So little things like that. The benefit to being, potentially at home or in an online competition is you do have a little bit of that comfort. But it's important to not forget, and almost try in that sense to treat it like a normal training day. Like Caroline, goes out, does a piece, comes in, drinks some water. She knows when she's going to eat food.
Some proper fuel.
Drink some proper fuel, properfuel.co. Get some food, leaves, comes back, like has kind of that training routine. But does that change for you when all of a sudden the only difference is that the stress level is significally higher, and all of a sudden you forget to eat, you're not
stress
hungry,
means
like
you need
that
even
sort
more
of thing.
food than you normally have.
Right.
So.
Are you able to, like you were saying, cool down after a workout, kind of get out of that parasympathetic nervous system and start to, out of the sympathetic and start to, rest and digest and be ready for that. And so that kind of like maybe loops back around to making sure that you have kind of a schedule as best you can. Like, if it's a 20-minute workout, you've got 40 minutes blocked off ahead of that for the warm up. You've got a coach who's setting your stuff up, execute, cool down. Okay, I need to eat food between events 2 and 3 before I do event 4, a couple hours later, that sort of thing. So while yes, we want to adjust and maybe put ourselves in an uncomfortable situation, once it comes time to perform, like you don't get extra points for making it harder on yourself once the competition is going.
Right.
So, you know, make yourself comfortable, so to speak.
Yeah. And we did an entire episode on this, competition season series episode 2 on mindset, where like full 30-40 minute conversation about setting your expectations with other people. But the Cliff's notes essentially are, if someone is going to have a positive or negative effect on you during this period of time, set your expectations prior to 15 minutes before they will positively or negatively affect you as a human being. So you should have someone setting up both of your cameras, your camera A, your backup camera. You should not have to deal with any of that shit. You should know who your judge is. You should let them know, hey, get here early. I'm going to show you my reps. You tell me, we're going to set the standards, our own, like, hey, do you think that this is, looks good based on, what CrossFit says, all of that stuff. Set those things up in advance, because people will understand when it's not in the heat of the moment. When it's in the heat of the moment and there's multiple athletes going at once, it can be tough on both sets.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that people aren't doing that to you. And again, we won't spend too much time on it because we've already done an entire episode, but it's worth bringing up again because it does a lot. Like you see people get frantic about something, and it's like, you don't get frantic like that at a competition. You do your warm up, you kind of ask yourself, man, is my heart rate going to get spiked? Do I need to do warm up again? How does my shoulder feel? And then you start to get that slow build to the moment. When you're at the gym and you're worrying about all these other things right before, you're taking away from the effort that you can give out on the floor.
Yeah, you have a support staff to make sure those things are kind of taken care of. And it, like when you were talking, it reminded me of the year that Cody qualified as an individual, and he would go to he'd go down there like first thing in the morning, break a sweat, get 100 calories in his assault bike, and then would do mobility. Then he'd go get some fuel in his body. Then he'd come back a couple hours later and make sure he felt good with the movements. Then he'd go out there and crush the regional event. And he was just setting the expectation of like, this is what the things I need to be doing personally to make sure that I'm ready. But he also had yourself, myself, we're just there. Like, if you need something, we can go run, get it for you, or talk to you about a workout, so that there's less variables for you to focus on other than, am I ready to exercise at my best capacity? Am I ready to take on whatever the event is? And the other variables are worked on by your staff, or you work by the people who are around you, who support you and want you to see you do your best.
When I was thinking about this episode, I think I'm going to have to ask you guys to help me work through the idea, but one of the things that I notice as an athlete is like super calm until they realize that they're about to do an open workout, and then shit hits the fan. Like there's just this thing about, like, again, it's like every other day I'm walking into the same gym, it's the same people or whatever, and then you can see their demeanor change. And what I wrote down in the notes was, become intimately aware of what the occasion is and then rise to it. And it's just this idea of starting a couple days before, getting yourself into the mindset, into that killer mindset of like, I've been humble all year, now it's time to just go out there and fucking smash people. If you get into that mindset, to me, a little bit earlier and understand what you're about to do, then you don't show up at the gym and you're at like a 0, and then put your shoes on and walk into that square and you're at 100. Like, there should be you should understand what you're getting yourself into prior to that moment. Because you can see in so many athletes that don't like online competitions, like the anxiety, it doesn't exist. And then it's just fucking punches them right in the face and the workout hasn't even started yet.
That to me just goes back to your practice habits building up to the event. And it was something that we're trying to do with our current phase 9, is to get people comfortable with what an open workout should feel like, setting things up, what the day before should be like, how you should flush, what you should be thinking about leading up to it. To me, that is the best case scenario there, is that you start to create these habits where, each thing that you do that's leading up to it signifies, all right, I'm turning the dial up a little higher, turn the dial up a little higher, turn the dial up a little higher, until it's, all right, now it's fucking go time. And then it's brains off, work, just do my thing. And to me, that is something that is rehearsed and something that needs to be practiced. Otherwise, you are asking to have that same heart rate spike and, oh shit, I'm not ready for this, happen when 3, 2, 1, go happens.
I think it goes back a little bit to kind of the expectation management, both for yourself and the people that are around you. You have to be able to either sit down and talk with, or have the coach who is already gonna realize that, like, hey, my expectation for you and your expectation for yourself as the athlete should be that a couple days before you do turn on that killer instinct. You do turn on that mode. And maybe you're not the nicest person to be around at the gym, and there becomes a little bit of a hall pass there. Like, that's acceptable. That's what we want, because we're assuming that, you like, again, going back to the previous episodes, that you've built a rapport and the relationships and stuff with the people around you. You
don't try to do it the day of the comp.
All of a sudden it's like, why is Sure being such a fucking dickhead, like, on this day, when it's like, especially if you don't have that rapport with everybody around you, and it can be, as silly as it sounds. I'm just thinking, like, at our gym, it's like, hey, just so you know, for the next couple of days, our athletes are going to be hyper focused on competing. And, we want you, like, please understand that we're here to support them. This is what they've trained for all year round. So there's kind of that buy-in from both sides and everybody to kind of lift that athlete up, rather than feel like they're dragging people down,
right.
To kind of that negative mind space, what might be perceived as a negative mind space, because you are just, like you said, that switch is flipped. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk about anything other than me getting ready for this workout. I don't want to talk to anybody other than my coach helping me give strategy tips, or my judge counting my reps. Like, I want nothing to do with anybody except for that. And to have kind of give yourself that pass. And again, hopefully you've cultivated the relationships necessary for somebody else to give you, like, oh yeah, like, Hunter's in competition mode. I want to respect that and help him in whatever way I can. But
right. And you're the weirdo in this situation.
Exactly,
if you're that person,
yeah.
like who else, like, is there, like, one day a year, there's, like, the fucking PowerPoint awards. You're given the best presentation like, other people live their lives day to day, and there's ups and downs, but to work that hard and just drop the most important day of the year randomly, and to have people on the outside understand what that means. Yeah. They didn't sacrifice all the shit that you did. Like, they can understand to a point of, like, oh, I like that person, I'm going to cheer them on, but they're not going to understand to the depth of, like, no, this is my life. Like, right. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. All right. So I have a bit of a pet peeve as a coach. And I see it come up a lot, and I see it work for very few athletes, but it does work for them. So I don't want to put this out as a blanket statement, but there is something very different than, this is a good strategy for this workout, and the saying that I love, I'm going to run my own race. Yeah, you're going to run your own race. All right. You'd be by yourself, not racing anyone. That idea of the killer instinct, and that idea of not being, like, you're gaming these workouts. If there's a trick, if there's I should break here instead of being the tough guy, or I should be working on my rowing right now. No, you shouldn't. If you can dog it and then have more energy and pass the person every round, thumbs up. Yeah. Like, that's what changes here. And I think that's where we tell people in training, this needs to be for you. You are trying to adapt in a very specific way. But once it's a sport, like, this is a 3-pointer's a 3-pointer.
Every shortcut you can take, you better fucking take it.
Right. So to me, understanding the difference between training and testing then explains to you why saying I'm going to run my own race in something that takes 5 minutes just doesn't really make sense. The run my own race is like Kalipa doing 300 unbroken double unders in the triple threes. Like,
solid strategy.
We'll see you later.
Yeah.
We'll just run by you later. It's fine. Like, things like that, to me, there's these big tests with these maybe giant chunks of movements, or it's just super long. Like, you do need to be able to figure out what you're personally capable of. But then there's also a lot of workouts where it's just like, who's going to put their head down and fucking crush the fastest. And if you try to run your own race, you aren't gambling enough to put yourself in a position to win. Like again, I talked about earlier that tightrope of I'm probably either going to do the best that I possibly could or do maybe a little bit worse. The way that CrossFit works points wise in a lot of cases, like middle of the pack means nothing at all.
It's a wash.
And like you would think that in a sport where, I don't know how you put it last time, Hunter, but in a sport where being average is awesome, when it comes to the points, that is not the case, right? Because you get someone who comes in, you know, first, second, third every once in a while, but then 20 something, they get more points than the person that comes in 10th every time. So yes, it sucks to take a chance and have it not pay off, but it's the only opportunity that you're going to have as an athlete to move the needle when it comes to the standing. Like, yeah.
I don't know. I just think of I'm going to run my own race thing as like it's a funny statement because for the best of the best, it seems like that's a statement about being humble. Like, I'm just going to do the best I can, but I know I'm really fit, so I'll probably kick your ass anyways. Who cares? And then there's the people who are scared to put themselves out there, say, I'm going to run my own race. It's a cop-out. Save themselves from the embarrassment of like, this is as good as I get. I can't do any more than that. Like, to me, that seems like I
wanted to be the backup.
Yeah, I wanted to be the third string quarterback. That was my plan all
along.
Yeah. So to me, it just seems like the statement can be used interchangeably both by the best and by the worst, but understanding that like when it comes time to care about scores, and that's how you decide who's first, who's second, who gets the prize money, all of that stuff about I'm doing my own race or I should row at this pace or that, if you have that mindset, you're one of those people that go in there to collect your Reebok gear. You're not. If
you know that race means you're going to lose, then that just,
why the fuck would you have that as a strategy?
The strategy just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, who signs up for an event and is like, oh man, I can't wait to lose this. But that's literally what you're saying when you say, I'm going to run my own race. Like, well, this is good. I guess it's as good as it's going to get. Maybe I'll do it.
And if you're one of those athletes who says that and then you mean I'm going to go 9-6 instead of 15 straight, thumbs up. You're doing the right thing. You know yourself as an athlete. And again, that's why I don't want it to be a blanket statement. Like as a coach, I don't want to say, don't fucking say that to me. I don't want to hear it because there are athletes who have a plan and man, they stick to it and their transitions are the way that they need to be. But there are also athletes who have that in their back pocket to say when they get done, well, I had fun. Like, and I guess it depends on what your goals are. If you're there to have fun, that's awesome. Like if you're competing at that level and you're there to have fun, good for you. It's probably a pretty healthy way to live your life. But I'm guessing you're at that level because you have a burning desire to win. Yeah. And taking chances is part of that.
It got me kind of thinking about myself from the other day. I went surfing, big nor'easter, just hit Maine and pushed some like pretty big waves out there. I was literally the only person out at Higgins Beach.
Are you the Matt Fraser of surfing?
I am not. Fuck no. You're about to find out why. I paddle out. Like it's still snowing, and for people wondering, like snow doesn't matter. It's fine. Like
it's wet.
You get out there, it's wet. You're in the ocean.
Right.
Some of the biggest waves I've seen at Higgins Beach, and believe it or not, Maine can actually get pretty big. I would say there were a few. Sets were in like the 10 to make like biggest sets maybe in like the 15-foot range. So it's a lot of water. Yeah, there's a lot of water moving. I paddle out and
Is that a hip thing to say? Like, I gotta write that down.
What?
Is that a hip thing to say? A lot of water moving?
He's pitted.
A lot of water moving. Yeah, there's a lot of water moving out there.
Yeah.
I'm literally the only person out in the ocean, so I'm kind of like, oh, this is like a little bit nerve-wracking.
Just you and the sharks.
I get out and it starts sleeting. So I'm just taking like in the direction that I want to usually paddle. I'm just taking sleet to the eyeballs. Yes. And there were a handful.
This is why Jen is the Coast Guard on speed dive.
There were a handful. That's good to know. There were a handful of waves that came through that I'm like start to paddle for. Like, yeah, I'm going to try to catch this. And like, it kind of gets underneath you and it starts to stand up and I'm like looking down and I'm like, oh man, like, shoot, I missed it. Like, not again. And like did that like 4 or 5 times before I caught like a smaller insider and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm good. Like, so the point, super long story short was that.
So what have
like,
you been up to, Sheriff?
I had that moment where I was like, oh yeah, I said to myself, like on the shore, I'm going to catch one of these bombs. Like even if I just catch one, cause I don't want to paddle back out through that mess.
Right.
Like I'll be super pumped. And I like got on the shoulder of a couple and I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. And it just made me think of like the athlete who like says to themselves all season, this is the year. This is when I'm going to step up. This is when,
Gum
this
flappers.
is my time. Yeah. And the camera turns on and it becomes, I'm just going to do my best. Like if it's not good enough and that's fine. Like there's merit in doing your best. Hopefully you are doing your best, but is it your best, or is it a little bit of an excuse where it's like, well, I tried my best? Like
that to me leads to like a loss or a slight degradation in like passion. Like you're willing to try pretty hard, but you're not willing to go all in and just say, I'm going to fucking see what happens. To me, that is such a bummer, because you see so many talented athletes who are very gifted, who are just like not willing to say, I'll fucking
especially if you especially if you put in the time that you did. And there are people who are just like, I train just for the fun of it, just to like train, and that's fine. That's well and good, healthy and whatnot. But if you're going to enter a competition, like, why the fuck not? Like, why wouldn't you? Why don't you paddle into that, that bomb and see what happens? And if you fucking get into the bottom of the Atlantic, you're
interesting too is that
Jen's on speed dial.
These same athletes who, we can convince, hey, maybe try to hang on for 2 unbroken sets, are usually willing, or maybe at least listen to us say it. But like, then you try to apply that exact same concept to a competition. You're like, I can do it for the Metcon, but I can't.
It's like when people don't dare to do the warm up.
Exactly. I can't bring myself to the competition. Like, you practice putting yourself in an uncomfortable scenario so often. It's just sometimes glossed over. You don't look at it the same way, because a competition in one single workout typically aren't analogous. You're not doing a one and done. The whole competition's over.
I also feel like there aren't that many times in a competition where you hear an athlete say to you like, oh, I made a really bad call. Like I came out like
it usually happens in a round or a set and you adjust.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like most of you listening are probably fit enough to the point where like you can come out too hot, but you're not so unfit that you can't recover from that and adjust. So if in that specific example, it's coming out too fast, but I feel like there aren't that many athletes who say to themselves after the event, like, oh, I just went too slow, or like I went out too hard. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was too safe with that. Like, yeah.
I find this issue to be fairly black and white when you dig into an athlete's psyche. And on one side, it's, I want to be great. And then on the other side is, I don't want people to think I suck. And the people that don't want people to think that they suck, you're just living in that gray area. You're living in that, like, I'm going to play this super conservative. I'm not going to come in last.
I'm going to have a solid B performance.
You climbed 29,000 feet of Everest, but decided the last, 80 feet weren't worth it. Yeah. Like, God damn, what a shame. You did all the work. Finish it.
Last thing I want to cover is the difference between playing it cool in your gym and at a competition. And it's just this idea, again, of you're at a competition and you're jazzed the fuck up and you gotta really kind of manage that a little bit. And then you play it cool in the gym and everything stays too cool the whole time because it's repetitive to these other days. So that's where it comes back to creating the idea that this is that big, this is that important, this is the thing. Even though I'm in the same gym, this is my pull-up bar, this is my favorite barbell, whatever. That's all fine and good if you can convince yourself to rise to the occasion, as opposed to, because that really is a skill. Playing it cool at a competition is a skill, but I'm not sure how much it's going to help someone in an online competition. I think it might hurt in a lot of scenarios.
I'm struggling with this one a little bit, because I understand the idea of like, you don't want to be all on one team or all on the other, and like learning how to switch kind of back and forth between being composed and not being a crazy idiot and being.
I just think they're different. I think in-person competitions and working out at your own gym to get the best score are very different.
Yeah, I'm trying to in my mind reverse engineer it. How do you create that same scenario when you're at your home and everything that you need?
How do you get your adrenaline to the point where you do need to play it cool?
Yeah, I'm struggling with that a little bit. I mean, I think we do certain things like in our routines and our primers and whatnot to make sure you're like in that ready state. But to put yourself in a scenario where it feels like you're at the competition, I mean, you're gonna get a hotel room in your same town and try it out, see what it's like. To me, that's a difficult switch to throw. But there are certain behaviors outside of traveling somewhere else that signifies that you're now in that competition state versus, you're in your house going to your same
I
gym.
don't know of that many people who don't get a little bit like excited or like get fired up when there are people around. I think just having,
So we're circling back to environment.
yeah. Kind of. I think so. I think it becomes, if you are doing that competition, you are on your favorite pull-up bar and barbell and whatnot. What's the difference? It becomes that environment. Do we block off? Like we saw it with the stage 1 of the games, like how many times, like with athletes had the caution tape around and members of their affiliate wearing masks and
They
stuff.
weren't
like,
allowed to
cheering
make
them on.
noise though. That was the best part. So the celebrations were they had to jump up and down and like do shit like this, but not
Big Daddy when he's
Oh,
watching
really?
hockey.
I didn't
they,
know
they
that.
weren't supposed to
That's
yell.
wild.
There's a video of someone at Laura Horvath's gym when she clean and jerked a fucking house, like freaking out but not yelling. It's hilarious.
Yeah, to me, I think that's what it is, for especially if you, as the athlete, or your coach knows that you struggle with that line or you're concerned about it at all. I think I feel like that's the easiest way. That's the biggest thing for me is, again, like
This
people get excited when other people are there to like encourage you and want you to succeed, rather than just being at an empty gym.
I think this makes the whole episode that we're putting the bow on top right now, because the thing that I joked about with Shirt before the episode that I wanted to touch on was this idea of, if you don't come from a traditional sports background, these concepts can be hard to manufacture. My note just to make sure laugh was nib high football rules, a little throwback there, but essentially the idea is to, we used to like sit in our own cars and listen to like Slipknot and yell and punch the steering wheel and, you got your special drink that you've got. And it was different and more exciting when it was a home game, which in theory is what this is in the competition.
Yeah.
But to touch on your point, it was exciting because it was all of our people yelling for us in the stands versus, the boos and the, all of the negative stuff that comes with being on the road. So combining the concepts of, really like I get to go perform for all of these people that I care about, people that care about me, that are cheering me on.
Yeah.
That's where I think you can reverse engineer this idea of, really kind of revving the engine up a little bit and getting excited for this showcase in front of your people in your building, because that is a huge plus in traditional sports. That gets people going.
I feel like most CrossFitters at the competitive level do have at least some non-CrossFit sports experience where that was their thing. Like I didn't really even think about it until you mentioned it, but for me, like the game day routine, even
fun.
in
You're like
fucking
buzzing.
high school, yeah, like you're wearing your warm up suit to school, and like, or maybe it's a shirt and tie or whatever it is, and like
Business trip.
Yeah,
They didn't make you pay attention in class. You're like, please, I'm about to put my head through that wall. I ain't listening to you today.
Yeah. Or like
I never did, but
Right, that's what I'm
especially
saying.
that.
How's that changed from the other day?
Yeah, and like people come up to you, be like, "Yo, you got Chevrolet today? Like, fucking, put someone's head in the dirt. Like, what are you gonna like?" It's you had that mentality, and it was fun, and it was just like like you weren't, when you went to practice, nobody's fucking watching you. You're trying to get better, but it's like when it's game time, you got the people around you. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm fired up. Like I'll be there." Like, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, goddamn right, you'll be there."
Yeah.
What was your routine, Hunter? Did you have a routine playing hockey?
Like pregame or
Yeah,
like a
what
day?
would be your day? Like anything special about that day that you would do differently from other days?
I mean, I think it was just it was on it for, not really. Like
No.
I wasn't so into, not that I wasn't into it, but I didn't know better. Like I didn't have like a research strength and conditioning or like the stuff that I did before soccer. I used to lift. I used to go into the gym and
Just
lift.
look fucking swole.
Yeah.
Slap yourself in the face.
People like joked with me because from like, I was like a hardworking hockey player, not super skilled, but between my sophomore and junior year, I like figured out that the weight room would make me a lot stronger than everybody else. And people used to joke with me because I like had muscle versus other people who didn't. And so they kind of like gave me that identity of
What
the
happened?
dude who just lifts a bunch. So I started like doing it before soccer games and stuff like that.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
So like,
You can't even do it on your off day, bro. I'm doing it during the game.
So like that was part of it, and I think it was just like it was more just like dialing in, trying to do that, and like, you
for
get
me,
on the bus.
I was
going to
ask you next what you did.
Be more
Football was different because you practice so damn much and you don't play all that often. Like baseball, you're always just trying to get through the practices because you had a game, 2 days later, whatever it was. So that was very different. When it came to football, like it took your whole day, the whole thing, and like the stuff that's not so great, but that I still would just do in a better way. Like Claire Crandall makes a mean breakfast sandwich, so I would have 2 bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwiches, and then I would have my like energy drink and my electrolyte water, and I'd be in the parking lot super early, and like you'd see someone else there in the parking lot early, and you'd
like look over in their car and like
barely acknowledge that you're both there. Like I'm in the zone, I'm doing my own thing. I see you over there. I know you hear my subwoofer, son. I know you can hear that.
How much your trunk rattle?
Oh my god, dude, it was crazy.
Rattle right off your
cooking
car.
rice back there.
It was crazy, but like it took over everything. So I just believe that reverse engineering it comes down to a heightened sense of, maybe the thing that we're lacking in this episode is talking about this is a positive thing.
Oh yeah.
This is fucking awesome. This is the time to get yourself ready to go. And obviously, when you're playing a sport where you run for 3 seconds and then rest for 3 minutes is a little bit different. You can rile yourself up maybe a little bit more than you would want to before a 20-minute AMRAP, but it's the feeling. It's the emotion of it. It's the getting yourself to rise to the occasion.
Completely agree.
All right. I don't know that we need to go all 3 on the final thoughts. This is one of the longer episodes that we've done.
That was
basically what I'm going to say to finish this episode is just, it's not the same. It's not another day. It's not another workout. It's its own thing, and it's a really big deal. And you owe it to yourself to, I keep saying it's the same thing over and over, but you owe it to yourself to rise to the occasion because you were the one who put the work in. Expectations and other people's opinions, when you've worked that hard, they don't fucking matter. They don't mean anything. You have put the work in. You are out there to compete against a former version of yourself. That is what's going to put you into that position. So if you're still struggling with, I don't want my competitors, my mom and dad, my coach, my friends, my significant other to think I suck, you're going to leave something on the table. You are out there to say, I'm going to win.
I'm more likely to think you suck if you
take it easy.
You were already the weirdo who's like beating the shit out of themselves on a daily basis and going to going to bed at 9 p.m. and like bringing their food to a restaurant or whatever, like
microwaving broccoli.
Yeah, microwaving broccoli. Like you're already a fucking weirdo. So you're gonna tell me like on game day you're not gonna turn it on? Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. Like,
what, are you just going to paddle in and go home?
Yeah, exactly. Easy
damn.
guy. It was fucking
you just
big.
Cut him so
deep,
bro.
I was taking sleep to the cornea for an hour.
He's going to be fucking crying in his car later. Goddamn.
Did we do it?
We did it.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on your first order. PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word Misfit to save on anything. And sharpentheaxeco.com. Use
everywhere.
the code word
Use it on Amazon.
Or use the code Keala, Keala, to save 10% on your order and to donate 10% to the Keala Foundation. As always, I am at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let me know what you thought of the episode, what you would like to hear next, and we'll see you next week.